All right. All right. Welcome back to another edition of Cardinal Craze. I'm your host, John. Today on the show, we have a special guest, Max Owens. He's actually from Big Red Louie. Max, is your first time on Cardinal Craze, and you are actually the brand new site expert for Big Red Louie. How you doing?
I'm good, John. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. We appreciate you coming out on the show. Today, we're going to be talking about spring practice, looking ahead. Now, we're about a month out from spring practice actually starting, but this is kind of foreshadowing what's to come. And we're going to be talking about several different aspects of what to expect and things that we're actually looking forward to going into spring practice. And we're also going to be taking a look at roster depth. We're going to be talking about that little by little. And hopefully, we'll have a fun show tonight. All right. So one of the first things I wanted to say is officially welcome. I know, you got on Big Red Louie a while back, and I just kind of wanted to say officially, welcome to the craziness that is college football, basketball. I know it's probably been crazy for you since you got on Big Red Louie.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. There's the football season then goes playing, and Louisville fans want their teams to be excellent, and everyone wants Lamar Jackson every single year. So it's always a good time. Basketball season's underway, so it's been fun. I've really enjoyed the experience so far.
All right. Well, that's good to hear, and I'm glad that you're enjoying it so far. All right. So today we're going to be kind of looking at the roster. We're going to be talking about spring practice. Now, before we start, what are your expectations for spring practice so far?
Expectations wise, I mean, I would expect the team to. My hopes are that the team responds to whatever Satterfield's putting forward after the series of rumors that went around in late November. Obviously, the South Carolina situation was a huge mess for the program and for Satterfield, and there's a lot of mixed emotions going on with the players and the roster as a whole. So mostly, I want to see how the players respond. Spring practice is about newcomers getting their feet wet, getting the playbook down. Veteran guys who got to step up. The receiving core is a huge one that has a lot of overturn in the offseason. It's the biggest one. And I'm looking forward to the offensive line battle a lot. The offensive line battle is going to be awesome through spring, through fall. There's a lot of guys who could potentially be starting on this team. Louisville returns their entire offensive line from 2020. So that's going to be a huge thing for me to look at. I am super intrigued by the competition at offensive line.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think competition is going to be big, especially like you said in the receiving core, which, again, like you mentioned, we have a lot of turnover. Tutu is gone. Des Fitzpatrick is gone. I believe Corey Reed jumped in the transfer portal, and he's gone now. I think he's going to JSU. And, we do have a lot of candidates who could potentially step up. Jordan Watkins. Let's see. We got let's see. Amari Hughes, Demetrius Cannon. Those are some of the newcomers. And, we got Justin Marshall back, Josh Johnson, Braden Smith, who really I think is going to have a lot better year for this coming season. Let's see. Nick Malati, Christian Fitzpatrick. I really have high expectations for Christian. I know he didn't play a whole lot this past season, but I'm really hoping going forward he's actually going to be a substantial key in the wide receiver core. But we're going to start off talking about quarterbacks. All right. Now, we lost T. Webb. He got in the transfer portal. He went to, let's see, I think he went to the Golden Eagles at Southern Miss.
Yep, he did.
So he's officially gone. And as a lot of people know, Jawan Pass jumped in the transfer portal. He is now going to Towson University. I believe that's how you pronounce that. And for the most part, we got Mikhail Cunningham coming back, Evan Conley, and freshman TJ Lewis. All right, so my expectation is that Mikhail is going to improve on essentially what he did last year and kind of hopefully have a what would you call it? Kind of a look at how he played during the 2019 season compared to the 2020 season, which he had a lot of difficulties. There was a lot of issues, especially in the pocket, getting outside the pocket, but some of that was offensive line. There were some issues going on there. but hopefully those can be straightened up before the season starts. What's your opinion on the quarterback situation?
So I agree with you. I think Malik, Mikhail, whatever his name he's going to go by the season is. I know it's changed a couple of times. I think he's going to be the starter. He's got the most. I think he's got the most upside of any of the quarterbacks on the roster right now. I think Evan Connolly is a fine backup. I don't expect him to really, unless something goes horribly wrong, I don't expect him to challenge to start the season. Malik's got a lot of talent. He's a guy that I thought would be a draft pick going into the 2020 season. And obviously that didn't really pan out. He's got a multitude of issues. Nothing talent-wise that's holding him back. He's got all the athleticism in the world. He's got a great arm. I know a lot of people question that, but I think the ball hums off his hand. I think he's really talented, has a really talented arm if he can figure out the small parts of the game. So I think he has a lot of issues reading defenses right now. Pete Thomas is going to be huge for his development. Frank Ponce is gone, and frankly, Ponce didn't really show me that he could develop Malik Cunningham. He took a huge, like you said, he took a step back in 2020, which is an issue because the back half of his 2019 season was so good, and he looked like he was about to take the next step, and he was a raw quarterback coming to Louisville at the beginning. So the fact that he took such a big step back in 2020 was hugely disappointing. I like TJ Lewis as a developmental piece. Big dude, strong arm. He got really no idea what he's doing. He's a big athlete with a huge arm. I mean, those are the kinds of guys you want to get on your roster and see what you can do with them. Satterfield's a great offensive mind, and Pete Thomas is a young quarterback with a lot of success in college as a college QB himself. So I like the three that they have, and I know Shaywards. I'm not exactly sure what the pronunciation is there, but he can be an emergency option for you as well. Likely behind Connolly as a third guy, and then Lewis will be a redshirt guy who learns through practice and camp and stuff. So I really like Malik Cunningham. Turnovers were obviously the big thing with him last year, but reading defenses and fixing his mechanics, mostly like turning his hips when he's throwing on the run is like a huge thing. Like, you know, he has the potential to throw on the run with his athleticism and get out of the pocket and all that. But turning his hips, making sure his body movements are correct with his lower and upper body flowing together, it's going to be a big thing for him. So if he cleans up mechanics and just starts divulging in the X's and O's, I think he'll be fine. We'll see what happens.
Well, you know, and I completely agree with that. Now, one of the things, now, if he does get out of the pocket and it's a designed run play, if he has great blocking, and we saw this in the 2020 season, and we saw a lot of it in the 2019 season, is that he can take off. You know, just like Evan Connolly during that Wake Forest game in 2019, when Evan Connolly just bolted, scored a rushing touchdown. You know, Mikhail did that multiple times in 2019 when he had good blocks. Now, a lot of the issues that we saw were directly related to the offensive line. The offensive line was thin. All right, there's no one that can say we had depth at offensive line. We had Cam DeGeorge filling in multiple spots in rotation, and sometimes, you know, these first-string guys weren't even getting breaks. That was what was scary going into the middle of the season, is realizing this is our starting line, and if they get sick, we got to put in backups that even at the time, Coach Ledford was even questioning that they were even ready. Now, one of the things is that I'm very happy, like you said, with Evan Connolly as being the backup. I think Evan Connolly is a great backup. Potentially, maybe next year, he could be a starter. He could potentially take that starting role from Mikhail. But I'm not really sure what the staff is going to do. I know TJ Lewis was a big hot favorite going in, and they have a lot of promise in him. I think Coach Thomas, he does have a lot of quarterback experience. He actually threw for 9,000 yards career total in college. I believe he played at I know he played at NC State. there was one college before that. It was kind of a D2 college, I believe.
He played Colorado State, NC State, and then he finished his career at Louisiana.
Yep. And I think what was Louisiana? What were they called? They were called the LA Kiss. Was that it?
I don't know. Were they called something different back then?
I think so. I'm not really sure. I think I saw a video that
He
posted.
He played in an arena league for 1 year.
Yeah. I think that was what it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, from what I've heard behind the scenes, he was a big help in recruiting. He was a big help when it came to coaching. And honestly, when he got promoted to quarterback coach, I was very happy to hear that. Because to be quite honest, I mean, I didn't know a whole lot outside of just some of the things I'd heard. But looking at his resume, it's great. It's extensive. He's had plenty of playing time. And he actually had playing time in a D1, ACC team, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So now we're going to move on to running backs. Running backs, this is going to be one of the most controversial spots outside of offensive line this year. I think that's going to get a lot of questions and a lot of eyebrows raised, because if you look at it, we lost Javion Hawking right before the end of the season. We had Aiden Robbins jump in, Jalen Mitchell jump in, so we saw them rotate. We had Hassan Hall. He jumped in a little bit at the end of the 2020 season, and Scott Satterfield was rotating them all. It's a little difficult to really tell who's going to step up and take that starting position. But the great part is that we got Berkeley back, we got Hall back, we got Mitchell, we got Robbins. And we also got, if I'm pronouncing this right, Coonley?
Mm-hmm.
Coonley. And, honestly, there was a lot of hype over him as a freshman. He's now, I believe, at the university. I think he's going to be able to start in spring practice. I'm really excited to see him. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, what's your perception on all this? Do you think that we're going to see Scott Satterfield still in that 4-guy rotation, maybe even 5? What's your perception?
Yeah, I mean, into spring practice at least, I think it's going to be Berkeley, Hall, Mitchell, and Cooley. I'm not sure what to do with Aiden Robbins, because he really hasn't played more than a handful of garbage time snaps, so I'm not really sure what to do with him. I don't think he'll want to play 4 guys. I think he'll probably want to get it down to 2 if he can, and then maybe a third deep rotation guy on long drives. Jalen Mitchell showed a lot as a vision back with a lot of a really good contact balance. He's not a burner by any means. He's not a burner. Berkeley's a similar kind of back. So I think those 2 guys will be guys that are in competition for a power back role in the offense as the primary power back. And then I would imagine Hassan Hall is in the mix as well. He's had injury troubles. Actually, all 3 of them were injured at one point at the end of the season.
Now, I will say Hassan Hall has done great on special teams. Overall, I really enjoyed seeing him on special teams, because he was able to make a lot of missed tackles. I mean, he was able to really kind of turn it into his own football field. I mean, his own chess game, really. I mean, he was able to – didn't he make an entire touch – what was it? They kicked in – I'm trying to think of what happened. I'm pretty sure he scored a touchdown on a special teams drive, didn't he?
I can't recall if he did in 2020, but I know in 2019 he scored. I believe he scored against Clemson.
Okay, that was Clemson. Okay, I couldn't remember if that was 2019 or 2020, but he's had some dynamic plays. There we go. That's a better word for it. He's had a lot of dynamic plays in his college career, which is great to hear. I agree with you. Robbins hasn't gotten a lot of time on the field. Mitchell has. Berkeley. I feel like we may have Berkeley, we may have Hall rotating, Mitchell may be in, we may see Robbins and a couple. I think this is going to be kind of a 2019 situation where instead of the running backs, we had quarterbacks. So, we had Mikael Cunningham, we had Evan Conley, we had Scott Satterfield rotating them, trying to figure out who fit, who worked. But at the same time, I think that was a great idea because it actually took pressure off of both of them, to be quite honest. Instead of having Mikael Cunningham in these third and fourth situations, Scott Satterfield would put in Evan Conley and they'd do a design run, run pass option. And, Evan Conley would just take off with his feet because he wouldn't be exhausted. But I think in the running back room, we're going to be seeing probably this carousel rotation throughout the 2021 season overall.
Agreed.
All right. So next we move on to one of the biggest questions, which is wide receivers. Okay. So let's see. We got Amari Hughes and we got Demetrius Cannon and we got, I really don't want to say this wrong, Shia Wirtz. Out of
Shai Wirtz.
Shai Wirtz, there we go. Okay, he was the Georgia Southern transfer, and Scott Satterfield likes to really recruit out of the Sun Belt. He likes to go after the Sun Belt players and coaching staff. But for the most part, let's see who's out. Des Fitzpatrick, Tutu Atwell, Corey Reed. Corey Reed transferred to Jackson State. Who's back? Justin Marshall, Josh Johnson, Braden Smith, Tyler Harley, I believe, Nick Malito, and Christian Fitzpatrick, and Jordan Watkins. Now, who's undecided? I believe it was Roscoe Johnson. He was a grad transfer. I think he's out now. I'm not sure. But for the most part, we have 8 guys who are back, 3 guys who are in. This is going to be a really tough situation on Coach Brewer because if you look at everything, outside of Jordan Watkins, some of them, and Justin Marshall, a lot of them are going to be new to this. Some of them have had snaps. I don't believe Christian Fitzpatrick had a whole lot of snaps in 2020. I think he had maybe 1 or 2, possibly, maybe a little bit more. I'm uncertain how many snaps he actually got and actually if he did any, to be quite honest. But what's your expectation for wide receivers?
It's going to be interesting. I think you'll probably see Braden Smith take on the Tutu Atwell role. That's my guess. I think he's a little bit more gadgety than Jordan Watkins is. I think Jordan Watkins has potential to be play the Des Fitzpatrick role. Yeah. They're going to have a lot of speed. I think that's going to be the main thing is that they have a lot of speed. Smith's fast. Watkins is super fast, as a lot of locals know. He's from the area. So Justin Marshall in 2020 got doghoused a little bit, I thought. At the end of the year, his snaps went way down. Yeah. Josh Johnson got some run, and I liked what I saw from him. Redshirt junior last year. I thought he was good. He really didn't play a lot of snaps other than a couple of games where he got a lot of run when Tutu Atwell got hurt. And Des Fitzpatrick was out for, I believe, a quarter. Not sure why that was exactly. But Justin Marshall, I don't know. He got a lot of snaps early in the season, didn't really do much with them. I could definitely envision a world where it's Jordan Watkins, Braden Smith, and a third name. I mean, they run a lot of 3 receiver sets. Yeah. So, which is what they're primarily running out there. They're running 11 personnel, which is 11 or 12 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 or 2 tight ends. So I'm not. I know I have a really good feeling Watkins and Smith are the 2 of the guys. I don't know who the third will be. It could definitely be Marshall because he got the nod last year. It could be Christian Fitzpatrick. It could be a multitude of guys. Shai Wirtz could make a run at one of the positions. He made the position change from quarterback to receiver this offseason. He, from interviews I saw, he worked really hard at it to make the switch. So we'll see. Like I said, Smith and Watkins are 2 guys I feel pretty solid about, are 2 of the guys that are going to be starting. Third guy is, I have no idea who the third guy will be. I don't know if they'll have like a really good third guy to count on this year, but I think they'd like to have a physical receiver there. So I think Marshall or Fitzpatrick are 2 guys that fans should probably be watching out for.
All right. My three picks are going to be Jordan Watkins, Christian Fitzpatrick. I think he's going to step up to the plate. I think this is going to be his year. I believe he's going to have enough training under his belt. He's going to know the playbook by heart, hopefully. And we're also going to see more Braden Smith. And the third kind of wild card, I think it's going to be Wirtz.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he, like you said, he did work hard. He has been working into that wide receiver slot position, you know, from quarterback that he was. And I really think he's going to be that wild card we're going to see out on the field. But I think those are going to be our three starters going into the 2021 season. But all right, so we kind of move on to tight ends. Tight ends, it's kind of, though there's not really, well, there's a lot of tight ends. We had two of them leave. We had Ian Piffett leave, and we had Tobias Little, and he transferred to Missouri State. Tobias Little actually didn't see any field time, I believe, in the 2020 season. I think he saw a little bit in the 2019 season. Ian Piffett had huge games both years. He was a great contributor, and I think he had actually moved from center before he came to Louisville. I believe he was more of a center or a guard, and he was up in the 300-pound range, and he comes over, and Stu Holtz looks at, recruited him and just kind of said, hey, do you want to play tight end? And they got him down to size. He was hitting around, if I look back, I think it might be 235, somewhere in that ballpark range. He had the height, and he did excellent. I didn't think he did a phenomenal job, but he decided not to return, which was very unfortunate. But the five we got back are Isaiah Martin, Marshawn Ford. I'm really excited about Marshawn Ford. Des Melton, I really think Des is going to have a much bigger year. Dorian Martin and Desmond Daniels. Desmond Daniels didn't see a lot of playing time. We had some hype around him when he was recruited, but we really didn't see much of him in the 2020 season. I think we're going to see more of Des Melton. I think we're going to see a lot more of these tight ends being utilized on the field, because I don't think we really had a lot of utilization around that tight end in the 2020 season. We did in some aspects, but I think this year it's really they're going to be the standout. They're going to be right there in front. And I look really forward to them. What's your perception on tight ends?
Marshawn Ford's the guy. He's the pass catcher in the group. He's still going to be the pass catcher. As far as they always got the blocking tight end / fullback / really wherever they want to line them up. I'm not sure who will take on that role this year. There's a couple of guys. They had a couple of walk-ons last year towards the end of the year, actually. Their names at the moment are escaping me, but they had a couple of walk-ons contribute pretty well in the blocking game last year as tight ends. Dwayne Martin definitely could step up this year, but as far as like a pass catcher, Marshawn Ford's still the guy. I mean, I'd still really like for Scott Satterfield to make him a main target in the offense. Last year, I thought they got way too far away from him, and he's a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. I think he's quite the athlete for an H-back, and he's a solid blocker. I don't understand why they got away from him in 2020, because 2019 he was much more featured as a freshman, as a walk-on freshman. And 2020 they got away from him, and he was injured towards the end of the season as well. So I would like for him to be a featured piece of the offense, especially since Des Fitzpatrick, Tutu Atwell, Javian Hawkins, they're all gone. All are going to be draft picks likely in this draft class. So Marshawn Ford's a guy that I'm looking out for this year, because I am begging for Scott Satterfield to just use him more. Make things simple for Malik Cunningham. Don't make things too complicated. Less complicated route stems for guys. Throw to Marshawn Ford, throw him flat routes every once in a while. Let him work in the open field. That would be my way of utilizing Marshawn Ford, because I think he's great with the ball in his hands. He's not going to be like a guy who's a dynamic route runner and wins at the catch point or anything like that. But if you can get the ball in his hands and like the short areas, I would be utilizing that all day and night if I was Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think we are going to see a lot more tight ends mixed into the rotation, especially on offense. Now, I think before Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think of his name for a second. It just Frank Ponce. I'm sorry, Coach Frank Ponce. I lost it for a minute. I was like, God, what was his name? Oh God, he was just here a couple weeks ago. But Frank Ponce even mentioned that the offense is going to be changing up, and they wanted to change up how they did offense. And I really think that tight ends are going to be more utilized, which is what I'm hoping. I think we're going to be still seeing some more quarterback options, pass run options. I really still think we're going to see that Satterfield offense style, but I think it's going to change just a little. We may utilize more of those tight ends. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, hopefully tight ends are utilized in spring practice, and hopefully that's the path they go forward on. Next, we move on to the most controversial one of all. That is offensive line. Mm-hmm. Now, 2019 offensive line was good. It wasn't the best. Mm-hmm. Moving into 2020, somehow there was a step off. As soon as Mekhi Becton left that field, it was almost like night and day. It kind of reminded me of like when Bobby Petrino, like as soon as Lamar Jackson left, and then Bobby Petrino kind of looked at everything and realized that Lamar Jackson was covering up all of the issues that were going on. And we saw some of that with the rotation issues that we saw in offensive line. Now, keep in mind, a lot of this is just player development. Some of these players who we actually have on roster were not ready to step up, or, honestly, I don't want to sugarcoat it, because in 2020, if you look at the roster, we had a first string, and I believe second string comprised of Cam DeGeorge, which rotated constantly. Mm-hmm. But to be quite honest, I think this offensive line in 2021 is actually going to make strides, because they have had an entire season to put on muscle, to put on weight. But for the most part, I really think that we're actually going to be very solidified in the offensive line position, just because we have so much talent. And I mean, if you look right now, we had the transfer from Virginia Tech that was Brian Hudson, and I believe he's going to be playing center. We have Aaron Gunn. Aaron Gunn is a favorite of mine coming in. He's going to be playing guard, hopefully. We have Mitchell Gonzalez. He's a freshman as well. We may see some playing time of him. I've heard he is a great offensive tackle. He can do offensive guard as well in some areas. Now, who's out is Jackson Gregory, I believe. I believe he's in the transfer portal right now. Mm-hmm. So we got Robbie Bell, Colt Bentley, Caleb Chandler, Adonis Boone, Trevor Reed, Joshua Black, Renato Brown, Zach Williams, Austin Collins, Tim Lawson, Kobe Baines, and Luke Kendra. And Cam DeGeorge, I believe, is completely out. He's gone from some of the sources I've heard. I don't know if that's true yet, but for the most part right now, Cam DeGeorge is still undecided. But for the most part, my expectations are raised. I honestly think that offensive line is going to be stacked, because we have so much talent returning. The almost entire offensive line is back outside of Cam DeGeorge. I don't see how we cannot be stacked at depth. Now, currently, Coach Ledford is in Atlanta or heading to Atlanta for the most part, and we don't have an offensive line coach going into spring practice. To be quite honest, that's a little concerning. But at the same time, we've been hearing rumors. The Oregon offensive line coach, Coach Mirbella, is that it? Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so, yeah.
We've heard rumors that he's going to be the offensive line coach at Louisville, but at the same time, we don't know. These are all just rumors. There's nothing solidified. We've heard that there's an SEC coach out there who Scott Satterfield is talking to, trying to figure out. We don't have a name, which is very it's very questionable. I'm not sure exactly who it might be. There was also talk about Coach Watts down at EKU potentially stepping up from that head coach position into the offensive line coach position. I'm not sure about that, but that was the main three we heard, and that's been kind of what's been circulating. But everyone that I've talked to, that I've seen, that I've heard, is so hung up on that Oregon offensive line coach because of the production that they can put out, the recruits they bring in, which is consistent 4-star players, guys who could easily start as freshmen. I think that's something that I'm excited to see. I've talked a whole bunch about this. I'll let you talk now.
Yeah, so everything that you're saying, I pretty much agree with. The the fact that they don't have a coach and spring practice starts next week is very alarming. I don't know what's happening on that front, but it's not good. I mean, anytime either he's having Satterfield's having an issue hiring someone that he really wants, or they're trying to negotiate a contract or whatever the situation is there. Um, I don't know. I don't pretend to know, but as far as personnel goes, the interior line is stacked. I mean, Cole Bentley's back, Caleb Chandler's back. Both of them are solid starters in the ACC, in my opinion. I think that Brian Hudson will ultimately probably start at right guard. We'll see about that, but he didn't start the whole year at Virginia Tech, but as a freshman, he was pretty stellar as a center. I believe he played center as a freshman, moved over to guard as a sophomore. But Robbie Bell and Cam DeGeorge were rotating a lot at that position, and neither really put together astounding results, in my opinion. I thought they both left a lot to be desired. The big thing for me is going to be tackle. I think you'll probably see Boone and Brown start once again this year. I thought they had their share of struggles, both against power and speed, especially Brown, especially against speed. He struggled. He's playing right tackle, which is in college, which is where you tend to put someone that is not as athletic but can still play tackle, where your left tackle is your more athletic piece. He struggled against speed. He's a little tweener between a guard and a tackle right now. So he's a major question mark for me. I think both of them are. Boone had his rough moments as well. So tackle is a big one. I think off interior is going to be totally fine. Bentley is super solid. I think he could have been all ACC. He probably would have had a chance to be drafted if he chose to come out of the draft. And Chandler was very solid last year as well. And then Brian Hudson, I expect to be a solid piece and an upgrade over Robbie Bell or Cam DeGeorge, who right now are both listed on the roster, but we'll see. DeGeorge, I don't think has officially announced anything on social media if he's coming back or not. So we'll see. Offensive line coach, I'm not going to speculate or anything at this point, but I would imagine that I don't know what Satterfield's going to do about that situation. I think he'll probably aim to go the similar direction of naming the position coach and co-offensive coordinator if he really wants to get someone, if he really finds that position to be important to have a co-offensive coordinator at. I think that'll be the direction he goes, and he should be able to pull a decent name off that alone.
Now, one of the things that I think, now if I kind of speculate on this, which I know is, just my opinion, this is no fact whatsoever, but it could be possible that Scott Satterfield may not find the person he's looking for, kind of like you said, where there's a contract situation, they're trying to figure out the details, there's back and forth between the agents, because some people may not realize this, but a lot of these coaches have their own agents, and these agents will sit there and they will argue their contract. Either they have certain things that they want, certain things that they desire to have within their contract that allow them to have the flexibility for either more money down the way or securing that they have a long-term contract at a school that they like. Now, one thing that we could see, which kind of happens from time to time, is that we see the head coach take over a position that is vacant, which we could see Scott Satterfield do. I would be not surprised to see Scott Satterfield going, I will be taking over offensive line. Now, mind you, this is just pure speculation, but at the same time, hiring someone from within is always good. We just saw that with the quarterback coach, but I'm not sure if there's anyone on these staff who could potentially fill that role that Coach Ledford is leaving open. Now, one of the things I am kind of excited about is that recruiting-wise, whoever we get, they're going to have a massive job in front of them, because we're going to need more offensive line players going into next year because, let's see, Robbie Bell will be graduating. Cole Bentley will be graduating potentially. And let's see, that kind of lines it up. So we'll just need 2, but at the same time, you never know who's going to go off or who's going to declare for the draft. We could have Caleb Chandler or Adonis Boone go, oh, I want to declare for the draft or go to the combine, and that could leave our spots vacant. But honestly, right now, there's pure speculation everywhere about who's going to be that offensive line coach. I'm really hoping for that Oregon coach. He has a lot. I mean, he has a great track record. He's great in recruiting. I think that what would you call it? The Midwest recruiting area. I think that would be big for us. Now we don't really recruit in the Midwest outside of California, and we have one player in Hawaii who we're trying to recruit for quarterback. Well, we were under Frank Ponce, so I'm not sure. Coach Thomas is going to look that way again. There's a possibility, but at the same time, I know they're looking all over. But let me tell you my starting 5. This is my starting 5 for offensive line. I believe we are going to see Renato Brown. We're going to see Adonis Boone. We're definitely going to see more Trevor Reed. And let's see, we are going to have Brian Hudson at center. And, oh gosh, how many was that? So the last one, I believe we're going to see either Kobe Baines or Luke Kendra, and we're going to probably see Austin Collins or who else was it? Cole Bentley or Robbie Bell. They're going to be switching out. They're going to be playing that kind of multi-role that Cam DeGeorge was doing. So I think we're going to be seeing hopefully a two-string offensive line position. Some people, I posted this a while back, some people told me what they were expecting, what they thought. It was a mess. Everyone was speculating. We were all speculating. It was a fun time. But for the most part, we probably got another week and a half before we're going to find out who's going to fill that coaching position for offensive line. So the next thing we're going to move on to, which is defense. Oh, looks like we got a comment. Oh, this is kind of an old comment. How y'all don't know what we're doing? Is there Mr. Football candidate? Okay, sorry. I didn't see this comment before. This is kind of going back to tight end. Okay.
We know who he is.
Yeah.
He is a freshman in 2020, and he's really an H-back behind Marshawn Ford. But he's not going to be playing this year because Marshawn Ford's going to be starting. But if Marshawn Ford goes down, he's probably the guy behind him right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely,
but
I agree.
Louisville's not going to play multiple H-backs unless the offense is completely being renovated, which I guess is possible. But
well, it's possible. But, I mean, we could adapt to that Memphis style, which is having 2 tight ends, utilizing both of them. Which they are now doing at Florida State under head coach, oh gosh, what was his name? He went from Memphis. Norvell, yes, Mike Norvell. Yeah, which Mike Norvell has a big challenge. That's another video, though. He has a steep climb, especially to those donors. He is not looking good. But that's another situation. All right, so we're moving on to defense. All right, defense. We finally got here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about defensive line. And one of the things we're going to be talking about is making tackles. That was one of Louisville's biggest issues in the 2020 season. We saw some of that in 2019. Some of the corrections were made later on in the season. But the 2020 season, there was so many missed tackles. I mean, if we look back at the Pitt game, if we look back at, oh, goodness, there were so many. Hold on, let me look at my wall. I have a poster of all of this. Georgia Tech, Boston College, Notre Dame, Miami, especially Miami. I mean, it was just missed tackles, missed coverages. I remember during the Miami game, we had, what was it? We had a corner. We had 2 corners, or not 2 corners, probably middle to outside linebackers. There was an entire space. There was an entire zone that wasn't being covered. And I don't remember who it was, but it was a short pass, and they made a 93-yard touchdown. I mean, like,
yeah, they got memed like all over Twitter because there was no one within Miami's running back on a wheel route within 40 yards of them.
Yes,
so,
I mean, like now keep in mind, it was understandable. There was a lot of roster change up. They were trying to cover key positions, and defense was still young. That's one thing that people got very upset about right away is because we had such a fantastic 2019 season that as soon as the 2020 season started, I mean, people had us in the top 25. All right.
Mhm.
Looking at some AP polls, I mean, we were up there. And quite frankly, everyone else is pulling it. A lot of the insiders are pulling us down. They're like, no, we're not ready. We're not ready. Clearly, defense was the biggest thing to work on. And we saw that. Now, I'm just going to reference 2018. I know that was a very bad year, but I'm referencing it because we saw defense had a lot of issues. We had, let's see, since Brian Brown, in a course of, what is it, going on 6 year now? We had 5 defensive coordinators consistently. Brian Brown is now going into his 3rd season. I think defense is going to look a lot better. All right. So before I get off that rant, the first thing we're going to start on is defensive line. Who do we have? Who's in? All right. So Tavarius Peterson is back. Malik Clark, Yaya Diaby, Diana. No, I can't pronounce his name now. Kennard, Edwards. Thank you. I'm awful with names. Put me on the spotlight. I'm awful. Okay, we got Boykin back. We got Bryant back. We got Dawson. We got Tell. Let's see. Who's out? Goldwire's gone. I think that's going to be a big hit for us on defensive line. Let's see. Who's in? Caleb Banks, Victone Brown, Raheem Craig, Ashton Gelati, and RJ Sorens. I believe Sorensen, thank you. If I pronounce any of these names wrong, no one take this personally. I am just awful. I gotta memorize people's names all the time before I can say them. Okay. I'm big on Ashton Gelati. I have interviewed him multiple times. I am big on Victone. Now, setting that aside, we saw a little glimpse of Ashton during one of the little videos that they put out, that Louisville media puts out. I was really surprised with Ashton's speed and his turn rate, and I mean how fast he was. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, as a true freshman, maybe he'll have some playing time out there on that outside edge. But looking at who's back, who do you think is going to replace Jared Goldwire?
So the guy I've got pegged to start at nose tackle is Desmond Tell. He's got to gain a little bit of weight to play at least 2 downs. I think he's listed on the roster as like 260, 265 or something along those lines. He's got to gain a little bit of weight. When you're playing 3 down like that, you're going to eat double teams. So he needs to gain probably about, if he's really 265, he needs to put on at least like 20 pounds in order to be a consistent starter on the team and hold up. Last year he was the main rotational piece at nose tackle behind Jared Goldwire, and I thought he stepped in and played fine in that role as a true freshman, and that was really encouraging to see. He got injured. I don't remember which game it was, but he was injured in the middle of the season, just like it seems like half the roster was last year. He was injured, but I think he's the main guy, and then you'll probably see Malik Clark as a rotational piece behind him. But those are the 2 guys I got at nose tackle.
All right.
Losing Goldwire is big, though, for sure.
Yes, of course. Goldwire was a tremendous front, and he played first string so much. I mean, he was such an important piece in the defense on that defensive line. So who I got? So I'm really big on Jadarian Boykin, and then Henry Bryant and Jared Dawson. We didn't see a whole lot of Jadarian Boykin. I think he can put on the weight. I think he could possibly replace Jared Goldwire. Now, if you don't remember, a while back, Jadarian Boykin put out several workout videos during the offseason before the 2020 season, and he looked ripped. I mean, he had gained a lot of muscle. He was out there, and he was working as hard as he possibly could. We didn't see him a whole lot in the 2020 season, which was surprising to me. But I've been hearing great things. I've been hearing that he's going to be one of those guys to step up and fill that role. Also, Henry Bryant and Jared Dawson, I think both of them could potentially, replace the key role that Jared Goldwire basically held. Now, at the same time, Yaya Diaby on the end, I think he's going to do great. Zach Edwards is going to do great. Kennard is going to do great. And we may see some of Peterson and some of Clark. I'm not sure. Desmond Tell, I am very excited about Desmond Tell. I think he's going to have a great season as well. But for the most part, it's going to be difficult. Do you think we're going to see some freshmen into the mix possibly?
I think it's possible. I like Yaya Diaby a lot at positions. I think he probably offers you the most upside as a actual pass rusher. When you're playing three down like Louisville does, you're going to be either two gapping, which means you're either so the nose tackle is playing both A gaps between the center and guard on either side. And then the defensive end could be playing the B or C gaps, and they have to stack the offensive lineman, which means they just get up under his pads, they hold that position, and then they shed whichever way they need to and run defense.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to two gap, which means you have to be able to have a good amount of size. So your defensive ends need to be at least like 250, 260 at least at the bare minimum. If they're not that much, then you got issues. But Diaby is a guy I like as a pass rusher. The obvious guy who you expect the rush to passer is the rush outside linebacker that they utilize in the 3-4, which is called tight front, which is what Brian Brown runs. So Diaby is a guy I like a lot. Peterson's a guy that I honestly was a little disappointed with him last year. I thought he was going to take a little bit of a step. I thought he would be like a 4 or 5 sack guy, but he really was. I believe he was out due to COVID protocols on that 1 week. I believe it was against Virginia when all the guys were out due to COVID. And then he really didn't do much after that. I was disappointed. So I could see a freshman stepping in there in his spot potentially as like a rotational piece, but I would expect Peterson to still get the majority of the reps at that position.
All right. Well, that kind of moves us on to inside linebackers. Now, inside linebackers is one of the slimmest positions we have. Now, it's not necessarily the biggest position we need compared to like outside linebackers, but currently there's only 5 on roster. And if we look at it, who do we have? We have Dorian Etheridge, we have CJ Avery, Monty Montgomery, and we have the transfer KJ Kloyd. And then we have Dorian Jones. Now, who's out? Dorian Etheridge is going to the NFL. Robert Hicks, who was a big fan favorite, actually is in the transfer portal right now. We don't know if he's going to stay. We don't know if he's going to go. We saw a little bit of Robert Hicks in the 2020 season. We saw him a lot in 2019, but the 2020 season, I don't know if there was just too much competition going on or what the situation was, but he just never really made it into that first string. But for the most part, since we have such a small amount of guys for that inside linebacker position, I really feel like we're going to see all 5 of them step up. We're going to see all of them play. We're probably going to have CJ starting with Monty Montgomery. We're probably going to see more of that rotation potentially. But at the same time, there's not really a lot of depth, and that's not on anybody per se. It's a position that we don't need stacked compared to so many other different positions. What's your opinion on inside linebacker?
I agree with you. Totally agree. It is light on depth, but I think they got 3 really good guys, honestly. They got Avery, he's their downhill run stopping threat. He's a former safety, but he plays much more like an old school linebacker, even though he's 5'11", like 220. Like he just plays like an old school linebacker.
Yeah.
Monty Montgomery, who's your athletic super athlete, he's 5'11" as well. They don't really care about size of the linebacker, clearly. He's 5'11" as well. I think he was playing at like an all ACC level before. He also, I believe, was on the COVID. He was also on the COVID list. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
He was also on the COVID list. Well, not the list, but he was out due to COVID protocols at one point in the season.
Yeah.
And after that occurred, his play it dipped a little bit, and I thought that before that happened, that he was playing at an all ACC level. He's a super impactful playmaker. He's very athletic. He can get downhill. He needs fine tuning coverage. He's last year was his second year in the program, so I would expect that to be addressed. He can move. I mean, I thought that he reminded me a lot before his injury of Michigan's Devin Bush. I had super high aspirations for what he could be. I thought he could be like a day 2 pick in the draft, just potentially like a late day 2 pick, like just like someone takes a flyer on a 5'11" dude that's just an insane athlete, makes a ton of plays. And then you got KJ Kloyd, who coach's first week he was on campus last year. I remember he reclassified super late, and he came in like the first week of September, and he raved about like a ton by the coaches. I think he's going to be like the Monty Montgomery role, what Monty Montgomery last couple years, where he rotates in, but he's basically a starter at the end of the day. Like he rotates consistent with Avery or Montgomery, one of the two or both. And I think he's going to be an impact guy. He's also a super athlete. He's a little bit bigger. I believe he's like a 6'2", 6'1", 6'2". He got some more reps at the end of the season, but once he's in like a full year off season in the program, I think you'll see some of that stuff that the coaches were raving about. And then Dorian Jones is kind of an enforcer. He's a depth guy. If CJ Avery gets hurt, he would be like a solid replacement for him. So I like the inside linebackers. Like you said, if a couple of them go down, though, they're going to be in some trouble. But yeah, their top 3 guys are studs. I really like that group.
Yeah, definitely. I like the group too, even though it's a small 5 roster position group. I think that it's really going to show this coming season, just because they have so much experience coming back, and I think this is going to be a safe area, especially on defense. Now, one of the things I kind of want to mention real fast was leadership. Now, leadership was one of the biggest issues that we heard about coming out of some of the outlets, which was accountability was just not there. Some of that leadership roles were being, I'm trying to choose my words very carefully, but there was some issues with accountability, and the leadership roles were not being taken as they should have. And I believe that has been fixed. That is hopefully out of the way. And I think we're going to see a lot more of accountability going into the 2021 season. Now, moving on to outside linebackers. Outside linebackers, we got 7 on roster, which is really great. Let's see who's out. Burns is out. He's going to the NFL. Thurman Gathers is in the transfer portal, who's actually already going to Arkansas State. This was a big one a lot of fans were mad about, which because Gathers jumped into the transfer portal probably right at the end of the season. A lot of fans were like, oh, why isn't he staying? Why isn't he going? Thurman Gathers had not really shown up for practice from what we heard. There were essentially a lot of fans were mad over this, but if you don't show up for practice, or if you do show up for practice, I'm not sure which one was. He may have shown up for practice, he may not have, but obviously it wasn't working out, and he jumped in the transfer portal. He's going to Arkansas State. Best of luck to him. To be quite honest, I don't want to hate on anyone on here. Best of luck wherever you go. But what we got returning, all right, who's coming back is Nick Oakley, Yasir Abdullah, and we got Marvin Dallas. Marvin Dallas, I'm really big on him. He's from Georgia Military College, just like Trevor Reed was. We got Alan Smith coming back, Cam Wilson, Zay Peterson. Zay Peterson, I'm very big on. He actually he had a big role in the 2020 season. And I'm really excited to see what he'll do during spring practice and what he'll do during this offseason when it comes to building more muscle, more weight, more speed. But we're also we're also gaining Jackson Hamilton. He's a freshman. I believe he could contribute as well, possibly. But this is a pretty solid position so far within the linebacker core, in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The problem I have, like I said, this Brian Brown mostly runs something called a tight front, which is obviously what Louisville fans know as two inside linebackers and a rush outside linebacker and a hybrid outside linebacker with three down defense linemen. And that really what that defense is designed to do is stop spread and basically any modern college offense, and it eliminates as many holes in your defense as it possibly can. So the rush outside linebacker is important because they have to be able to stand up, to fill the C gap and scrape off the defensive end on whichever side they're lined up on, and make a tackle and run defense or rush the passer. So it's a huge role. And then once in a great while, they'll drop into coverage. You don't want that consistently, obviously, because they're a rush line outside linebacker for a reason, but they can, and they do at times. And Yasir Abdullah did that a few times last year. I think he'll still be the outside linebacking, the rush on outside linebacker. I don't recall what the terminology is for Louisville staff for that position, but I still think he'll hold that down. I really don't think that they have another guy there. Like you said, Thurman Gathers was a guy that I was actually pretty high on. He was a skinny kid, but once he gained more weight, I thought he was a great athlete. He's got NFL bloodlines. I think his cousin was Clayton Gathers, who was a safety for the Colts. So those aren't guys you want to lose often. So that was tough. I really don't know who else could be an option besides Yasir Abdullah. Yasir Abdullah is a tweener himself. He could honestly, if you wanted him to, like, he could play middle linebacker. He could potentially play the guard position, which is a safety hybrid position. Like, he's undersized for what he's trying to do. He's 225 pounds trying to rush off the edge. Like, he's 6'1", 225. That's not really what you want at the position. At least I don't think that's what Brian Brown wants. That isn't what I would want out of my rush outside linebacker. But he's effective. He's a great athlete. So I do think he'll start there. The guard position, Kendrick Duncan's on campus, the Georgia State transfer.
Yeah.
He is a guy that I could see playing multiple positions on the defense, but the guard position is definitely one that suits him. He's like, I don't know if he's, let's see if he's on the roster. Yeah, he's 6'3", 225. They have him listed as a safety on the roster, redshirt junior, out of Georgia. He's a kid I like a lot. Size, height, weight, speed, all that good stuff. Like, that's exactly what you want out of your safety. And I think he would be a good option close to the box. He's a good hitter. Had a good amount of production at Georgia State as well. So I could see him competing for guard. Obviously, the loss of Rajay Burns is pretty big for the team. He played almost every snap for this team over the last 2 seasons. So it's a big loss. I could see Duncan starting that spot. I could also see a guy like Marvin Dallas starting there. I could see a guy like Benjamin Perry coming in and starting there right away. They have a ton of options. That's like one of the deepest positions on the team. I'm super intrigued by what the competition is going to look like there, because I think that could definitely. I love Rajay Burns, but I think that could honestly be a position where they could even upgrade potentially with Benjamin Perry or Kendrick Duncan, just because they're a little bit bigger guys. They still move just as well as Rajay Burns. I like this position as a potential upgrade spot, even though I know fans love Rajay Burns, and I myself liked what he brought to the team. He had a little bit of edge. He was always good for one big play game, but I do like Kendrick Duncan, and Benjamin Perry is probably the favorites to start the spot, but Dallas and Peterson are obviously dark horses there as well.
Now, I will agree to that. Now we're talking about the defensive backs now. We kind of changed gears there for a second. But since we're in that defensive back kind of area, I completely agree. Duncan coming in from Georgia Southern, Scott Satterfield loves that Sun Belt area, like I said a little while ago. But for the most part, yes, I believe he's going to be a big step up. And I believe that you said Perry as well. Perry, actually, I think he's going to contribute a lot to the team. He could be a true freshman, in my opinion. TJ Quinn's going to be big. And Kenai Walker, actually, I think, could be also a starting redshirt. I'm sorry, what do you call it? A true freshman. There we go. Oh, goodness, my mind went blank for a second. All right, but yeah, for the most part, Isaiah Hayes is out. He's going to the NFL. Marlon Character is out. He's going to the NFL. Russ Yeast, is going to Kansas State. That was one of the biggest surprises that I was so shocked on. I really thought Russ was going to come back, but at the same time, it's really up in the air what made him decide to leave. Anthony Johnson going to Virginia. That kind of hurt a little. That another ACC team. That I don't know. That just kind of hurt. But Tyler Plummer going to Chattanooga, and then Troopman is he has schools unknown yet. But who we got back is Jack. There was a way to pronounce. Do what now?
I believe it's Jack Fago.
Fago, okay, because I almost read that wrong. All right, so Chandler Jones is back. Tyrell Clark, he's back. Lovey Jenkins, I'm really excited about him. Marquis Lowry, I really hope he can step up in that corner position or probably free safety. Jamiel Stark, we're going to see a lot more of him. Josh Minkins was great. Greedy Vance, I'm excited about seeing what he can do. But for the most part, we have a decent amount of guys. In that defensive back area, we should be pretty good. Now, one of the biggest issues that we had in the 2019 series was, defensive back area was kind of a toss-up in the air, to be quite honest. We didn't know who was playing what position, who was playing where. In the 2020 season, we saw a lot of issues with the defensive backs in certain key moments, especially, third down situations. But you know what? That's all water under the bridge. Like I said, I'm not hating on any of these people. If I make any statements, that's just a personal thing. Don't take it seriously. Sometimes I just talk to be talking. But for the most part, defensive backs, I think we're going to be solid. I think this is going to be a great year for several key positions. But yes, my bet is Kenai Walker and, like you said, Benjamin Perry. I believe both of them are going to be true freshmen. And they're going to be utilized great in Brian Brown's defense. And since Brian Brown is the defensive backs coach, I really think he's going to utilize this position since we have a lot more talent. But for the most part, special teams, we got Mitch Hall, we got Brock Travelstead, and we got James Turner. I believe it was at the beginning of 2020. It was James Turner, right? Who was the one who kicked either was a punt or it was a field goal, and there was just a lot of anger. Do you remember that? Do you remember everyone was just kind of like angry at this one punter or
Logan Lupo?
That's who it was, Logan Loophole. He got a lot of heat for that. I don't think that was really that really wasn't his fault. He was, but at the same time, these things happen. Fans get mad, but for the most part, he has actually entered the transfer portal back in January. So, wherever he goes, I hope he, finds the best place for him. But for the most part, with the long snapper Mitch Hall back, I think that's going to be great. What's your perception on special teams? Do you think that honestly, we've had really great product come out of special teams, especially in the kicking, receiving. We kind of mentioned Hassan Hall. He was able to make dynamic plays in both 2019 and 2020. What's your opinion on special teams going forward, and what is your perception on how Stu Holt may utilize this position?
It's a good group. Turner's very good. He's rock solid. I don't think you have an issue there with him coming back. Punting was a little bit of a question mark last year. I left a little bit to be desired, to be honest. I believe Ryan Harwell was punting last year. He was a sophomore last year. Mitch Hall's a great option as a long snapper. You don't have any concerns there. And then returners, you have a lot of dynamic options you could use. Jordan Watkins is a guy that I could definitely see returning punts this season. Braden Smith's another guy. Then you got Hassan Hall, the return kicks. I think you're sitting pretty good there, honestly. It should be a good group. I don't envision there really wasn't many issues last year aside from punting. So there's a couple fumbles earlier in the season, but other than that, they're fine. I expect it to be a solid group.
Now, one of the main things that I will say that has been kind of a lingering issue, which is onside kicks. I believe in the the 2019 and 2020 season, onside kicks were honestly one of the worst and scariest moments. I believe we had several. I think it was back in 2019. We had the Wake Forest incident where we kept getting onside kicks, and everyone was sitting on edge, literally watching this onside kick because we knew Wake Forest was going to do it, and I did it. I think it was like this big controversy during that game where I think the ball popped out or the kicking team grabbed it before it crossed the 10-yard line. I mean, it was just this huge situation. I'm trying to remember back. To be quite honest, it's difficult to try and think that far back. But for the most part, you're right. I think we're going to see a lot more production coming back. I think we're going to – well, I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be great. I think we're going to be consistent. But for the most part, that kind of wraps up the entire roster depth breakdown that we have been doing for the past hour now. We gave our speculation on hopefully how spring practice will go. We both are optimistic. We're both hopeful that things will develop. We're hoping that the O-line coach gets in before spring practice happens, or at least someone within the staff takes over, and hopefully they can utilize that, or they find an outside hire. Right now, it's all speculation. Anything we said on the show regarding offensive line coach is merely still speculation. There's nothing confirmed, denied. But for the most part, we just need to wait on the edge of our seats like we always do, and we just need to check Twitter every day. All right. Well, Max, I'm going to sign off, and we'll talk right afterwards. But this is the ending credits. So, Card Nation, I really appreciate you coming out, listening to our hour-long roster spring practice breakdown. We're going to have a lot more to come. We're going to be back on the show. We're going to be talking more about our thoughts after spring practice, hopefully. Max, if you're up for it. And for the most part, go Cards. Oh, definitely check out Max at BigRedLouis.com. I forgot to throw that in there. Also, be sure to subscribe, tell your friends. We're always here. All right. Well, for the most part, go Cards, y'all.